It's no secret that Zion Williamson has had a horrible year in the NBA, hasn't touched the floor yet this season, hasn't played one game, and he's obviously in a very bad overall situation. At the start of the year, it comes out that he has a foot injury. It looks like it's going to be a 2-week thing, but he did not really rehab properly, and he definitely dealt with weight issues, has suffered multiple setbacks now. And with everything going on, he is pretty much getting criticized by the entire NBA community, mostly for his weight problems and his unwillingness to rehab properly with this injury, and now his relationship with the Pelicans organization and how he's not willing to commit to helping this organization, especially in the long run. Now, with everything that's gone on this year with Zion, many fans across the community are thinking that this might even be the beginning for the very early end of Zion's career, and that he's going to end up like a player like Greg Oden, who had so much potential but wasn't able to maximize it due to injury problems. But in today's video, I'm going to try to convince you guys why this is not going to be the case for Zion Williamson for the rest of his career. Before this season, going into the year, Zion was my very favorite player in the NBA, and throughout this whole season, not on the channel but in real life, I have been backing him up every single time he comes up in any kind of conversation. And in the last month or two, I'm not gonna lie, it's been really hard to back up Zion. He is definitely in the wrong in this situation. He is not taking the proper steps towards rehabbing and getting his career back on the right track. But one thing I will say, and that I'm going to be discussing in throughout today's video, is he is going to find a way to still have a productive and very good career in the NBA, and he's not going to end up like a guy like Greg Oden. So let's get into the analysis and why I think this is the case. The main reason why I think Zion is not going to end up wasting his entire career like a guy like Greg Oden is because he simply just has too much talent to do that, and he's already even showcased that in the NBA in the 2020 and 2021 season. And it really is that simple. Zion is just simply too good at basketball to have his career wasted, and even if he does suffer with injury problems throughout his whole career, however long that may be, when he is fully healthy, he is still going to be absolutely dominant. We have seen many times and many players throughout NBA history who have had injury problems throughout their career but have still really been able to thrive as an NBA player, when not even if they're fully healthy, but even when they're just healthy enough to be on the court, they're still dominating. And like I said, we've seen many players throughout NBA history who have been like this, who have had injury problems but still been able to have successful careers. And I think that's ultimately what's going to happen to Zion here. He's not going to be a complete bust because of these injury problems. He is so good that eventually those steps are going to be taken to get him back on the court. I mean, I think it's going way too far to say that he's played his last NBA game, and because he most likely hasn't played his last NBA game, when he gets back on that court, even if he's not as dominant as he was in 2021, he is still going to be one of the better players in the NBA. I don't think people really realize how good Zion was last season. This dude was putting up historical numbers. He actually became the player to have the highest points per game in NBA history on 60+% from the field. He was putting up 27 points per game over the course of the entire season on 61% from the field, a 65% true shooting, and not even like Shaq did this at any point in his career. And Shaq didn't do this, LeBron didn't do this. Zion was the first player in NBA history to put up 27 points per game on over 60% from the field. And I've mentioned this many times in videos throughout my channel, basically before this season, about how this is just the start for Zion, and now we're seeing that it might not exactly be with the injury problems that he's having, but this was before he's developed a jump shot, but before he had good enough spacing on the team he was playing for to actually have room in the paint to operate and dominate, which, by the way, the Pelicans actually have decent spacing now, so that would definitely help him out if he was able to get back on the court. And before he had developed into a good playmaker and defender, which he showed glimpses of having some potential of those aspects of the game, which could have potentially developed into becoming even better. So essentially my main point here is that it's really simple. Zion is just so good at basketball and had so much potential as an overall player on the court that this is what separates him from the Greg Odens of the world who weren't able to develop their NBA careers. We know that when Zion is able to get healthy enough to be back on the court, he still is going to be dominating. And something that I don't think people have realized throughout this year as well, some of the more casual NBA fans haven't realized that just because Zion is 300 pounds and one of, if not, I believe actually he is the heaviest player in the NBA right now, just because of that does not mean that he is fat. The vast majority of his weight is actually muscle, which actually does benefit him a lot of the time. That's actually what is pretty much his whole game is based off of, is being the strongest player on the court and the best paint scorer on the court every single game that he plays. So a lot of that you can't even really criticize Zion for that, and just because he's 300 pounds now doesn't mean that he's not going to have that same skill when he's actually playing on the basketball court that he did in 2021. It might be a little bit, his stats might drop a little bit because of maybe his lack of quickness or still having a little bit of an injury whenever he's able to get back on the court. But like I mentioned, some other things are going to elevate his game, like development in other aspects of his game, the better spacing that this team has, if he's able to develop a jump shot eventually, and all that kind of stuff. So in terms of on-court stuff, like I said, even if Zion does have injury problems throughout his career, when he's healthy enough to play, he still is going to be one of the most dominant forces in the game, and this is why he's not going to completely end up a draft bust and a player that pretty much had his potential completely wasted. Now, I understand a lot of you watching this video that have kind of not been on Zion's side this year have not been convinced at this point in the video, because if he still does stay at this point in his career where he's 300 pounds, he's not putting in the effort to rehab, and he's constantly injured and having setbacks, everything I just talked about doesn't matter, because he is going to have that potential wasted if he isn't able to get back on the court. But I think something that you guys have to realize here is that Zion is still so young and still has a lot of room to kind of mature as a player. There's no secret that Zion has not done a good job this season taking the necessary steps to getting back on the court, but you have to understand that he's only 21 years old, and this is not 100% his fault. I mean, I'm sure he wouldn't be complaining about the Pelicans and their organization and the work that they've done with him rehabbing if they were doing everything right. I mean, they have to be somehow in the wrong here, and if Zion is able to eventually maybe go to another team, if this situation is not able to get solved at all with the Pelicans, then for all we know, he could rehab a lot better with another team, take those necessary steps, and eventually get back on the court, which again, that right there is the key. If he can just get back on the court at any time, then all of us Zion fans can just relax and breathe, because his play on the court is pretty much, in my opinion, gonna do the rest of the work here. And another thing is like I said, he's gonna mature as a player, and everything I talked about in today's video about how good of an actual basketball player Zion is, he is going to realize that at some point as well. He's gonna realize that he needs to take his rehab way more seriously, and you can tell that Zion really does love the game of basketball. He is not going to allow himself throughout the next 5 years or so to do what he's doing now and relax too much and not take the necessary steps to getting back on the court. He eventually is going to mature enough to lose the weight that he needs to, whether that's 15 pounds, 30 pounds. He's going to eventually do that because like I said, he's going to mature and he's so young right now. And really my main point here is that Zion still has his whole career ahead of him, and many of you people watching this video and many fans across the NBA community are kind of giving up on him after 3 months, which is definitely not the right thing to do. Zion, like I said, he still has lots of room to mature. He has so much talent, and I really don't see a scenario where he squanders all of that because he's not willing to take the necessary steps to rehab and being a less injury prone player and losing the weight that he needs to lose and all that kind of stuff. Overall, the situation with Zion Williamson as a player in the 2021-22 season has been an absolute roller coaster. Honestly, been like depressing at times for us Zion fans of the world who love to watch him play and haven't got the privilege of watching him play throughout this season. But like I said, my opinion on the situation is that eventually Zion is going to be able to figure it out, especially if that's with a new team and he gets a change of scenery and potentially a better team to rehab this injury with and become a less injury prone player, lose weight, solve most of his problems that way. I think if he goes to another team, you could see a lot of those problems potentially solved. And with everything else I talked about in today's video, how he simply just has too much talent and is such an overall talented basketball player, especially with his amazing paint dominance and his efficiency on the floor as a scorer, and how he is so young and will be able to potentially mature, realize his true talent, and take those steps really throughout his career to get back on the floor, get back fully healthy, and really maximize his full potential. Because of these reasons, I feel like Zion is not going to be the next Greg Oden, and he is eventually going to figure out this situation, prove a lot of the NBA community wrong, and show that he really does have the potential to be one of the most electric and dominant basketball players that we have seen in the history of the game. So thank you all for watching today's video. I know this is definitely a controversial topic, so be sure to leave your comments down below on your thoughts on this wacky situation with Zion Williamson. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys next video.